Hello, and welcome to today's session. This is Up Close and Personal with Valorem Reply. You're all very welcome. I'd love to know in the chat, is this your first session of the day? Is it your second session? Let me know. You're all very welcome. So as you all know, that this is the Regatta. It was founded by Melody Berenger, and it's a gathering to connect women in tech to mentors, peers, and resources to strengthen our community, advance your career, and to learn more from one another. And while we're here to elevate women in tech, we also believe that tech is for everyone, and that goes beyond gender here. So this is the fifth with Regatta Seattle, and the second that is virtual. So we're really hoping to see everyone in person next year. I'll be adding a few pieces into the chat, just some housekeeping pieces. But I would like to introduce you today to your moderator, Andre Player from Valorem Reply. He's the Vice President for Strategic Alliances. But before Andre speaks, we do have a short video to share with you. So I will share that now.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the introduction. And also thank you to everybody who has joined all of us here at Valorem Reply. Really excited to be here, talk a little bit about the organization. We'll talk a little bit about some of the openings that we have and the fun folks that we have on our team and the fun folks that we are looking to add to our team as well. So we've got a couple of folks here. We've got Blair, Merritt, and Aaron, who will also be joining as part of the discussion. I also want to make sure and encourage everybody, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Once we get done with the bulk of the conversation and discussion, if we have time left over, I think we have a small enough group. If you want to come off of mute and have a conversation as well, we can do that. But number one, I just wanted to again say thank you. We are both honored and privileged to be able to present here at the Women in Tech Regatta 2021. This is our third year as a sponsor and a presenter at the regatta, so we're really excited about being part of the organization. As Isabel said, my name is Andre Player. I am the Vice President of Strategic Alliances for Valorem Reply. My job is primarily around helping to identify and define and maintain some of our more important and larger corporate partnerships. I also am one of the leadership that helps run our Seattle office. So I'm personally going to put in a plug for our Seattle office. We have about 55 or 60 folks there. When our office is open, we're down right on Pier 55. So if you're familiar with Seattle and the Great Ferris Wheel, my office window actually overlooks the Ferris wheel and the pier. So we're in a great location if you're looking to come join us in Seattle. We also have our headquarters is in Kansas City. We have, I would say, probably around 120 to 130 folks, or I'm sorry, 170 folks in Kansas City. We also have a very large presence in Kochi, India, where we've got about 150 folks. We also have a handful of remote offices, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing from a work from home and remote work perspective later on. But we've got a handful of remote offices around the United States, as well as a handful of remote offices in Europe. So that's Valorem proper. And then you'll notice that in our title is Valorem Reply. Reply is a network of technology companies around the world. There's about 150 or so of those companies that we consider all of our sister companies that all have a niche in either hardware, software, or services. And so we're able to tap into that network whenever we need to in terms of additional scale, additional footprint or additional expertise. Valorem is a digital transformation consultancy. And so we focus on driving business and technology solutions that are aligned with business challenges. So you may find other technology organizations that are very much focused on point solutions, whether that be security or cloud services, data and AI, collaboration. At Valorem, we are fortunate enough to be focused 100% on the Microsoft platform. But within that platform, we are end to end. And so basically what that means is that Microsoft develops it, then we do digital transformation consultancy around that. And again, it allows us to be very focused on holistic value and holistic solutions. So even if an organization comes to Valorem and says, hey, I want to deploy Office 365, we will be able to take a look at that, but we're also going to bring all of our other resources to bear. So if you're looking at Office 365, we may be asking questions around what are you doing from a collaboration standpoint? What is it that you're expecting to get out of the technology so that we are driving value beyond just deploying the technology in and of itself? The nice thing is that when we are sitting together in the office, we have folks that are part of our security team that are sitting very close to the folks that are part of the collaboration team and the cloud solutions team. And so at any given time, we're all talking together about all of the solutions that we can bring to bear for an organization, which makes it a lot of fun, number one. And number two, it allows us to drive a lot of innovation where we may not have been able to do that before because we didn't have all the different tools and pivots and outcomes that we were looking for. So that's a little bit about Valorem. And then, like I said before, we're part of the Reply network. So there are another 149, 150 companies that as we start to develop solutions, if we need other areas of expertise, it's very easy for us to tap into that expertise. And so that's probably one of the most important things to me working for Valorem is being able to have access to all of that technology, the access to focus on business problems, and then really drive value to our organizations through digital transformation. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Blair. Blair is one of our lead recruiters or is our lead recruiter. And I'll ask her to talk a little bit about Valorem from a recruit standpoint, and then we'll hear from Merritt and Aaron.
Thank you, Andre. As Andre mentioned, my name is Blair Niederhauser, and I am a senior consultant on our recruit team. So I am based out of Kansas City, Missouri, and this is my second year at Women in Tech Regatta, second year speaking at Women in Tech Regatta. So very excited to be here again this year, still virtual, which is great. And Andre had mentioned, we'll get into in a bit here talking about the work from home, work fully from home, how we've handled and adjusted over the last year since the beginning of COVID and quarantine. But I manage our recruiting team here at Valorem. So I am going to actually paste into the chat right now our career page, which I suggest checking out and looking through all of the openings that we have right now. So some backing to our growth, we have continued hiring throughout all of quarantine. And in fact, came out of this last year hitting an all-time high from revenue and are still in constant rapid growth mode and will continue to be for the foreseeable future. And really, when you look at the different roles that we have open, you'll notice a lot of them are going to be more senior level individuals. And I don't want that to discourage anyone from sending their information over to us if it doesn't line up, word for word of how many years of experience we're looking for. I'll also put in the chat our email for resumes. So if you have interest or just want to jump on the phone with myself, any of our recruiting team, and talk about your background and what interests you, there are times where we have created opportunities for that really strong individual. And a lot of the common aspects that we are looking for when we're talking to potential candidates is really the true consulting and having the experience of the fast-paced environment. And we're working with, as Andre mentioned, the different business units within our company, but also from a clientele standpoint, the clients that we're working with range all across the board. And I'd like to just jump into, we have Erin and Merritt on the call with us as well. And Merritt I'll kind of kick off with Merritt. She's a senior UX designer. She's been with Valorem through a lot of different stages of our company's so far, and really seeing the rapid growth and the advancement that we are making in the projects. And so, Mary, if you want to talk a little bit to your experience here at Valorem Reply and where you started when you came on board, and talk to a little bit about the day-to-day now.
Right. So my name is Merritt Munoz. I have been with Valorem Reply since April of 2014, so about 7 years. That is ancient in the tech world. I started my career studying architecture, and so I've always had a great interest in design and aesthetics and solutions that work for people. And I also had an interest in tech. And so before joining Valorem, I did a little bit of marketing for Google Fiber, QA for H&R Block, just kind of been dabbling. And then I joined Valorem as an end user consultant. And so I did that for about 2.5 years, but my passion was design. And like the more I learned about UX, I felt like that was my career home. Like, oh, this is what I have been looking for so long. And I was able to transition into that role. What type of projects do we do? We do a little bit of everything. And throughout the years, we were just in Kansas City, and we would consult for Microsoft. And like once you get the hang of that, we expanded to Seattle along with Kochi. And so we became a worldwide company, not just in the Midwest. And then a few more years, we joined the Reply Network, which is based in Italy. And so this is truly a world-class consulting company. And we're the first one in the United States. And so we're also acquiring other companies to join the Reply Network. And they bring their own specialties to the table. And I've been able to work with other Reply companies such as SagePath and work with different retail partners. And so like just when you think that you have the hang of things, there's a totally new market to jump into. And so that has been very rich experience for my career overall. Like we're not doing the same thing, and being able to consult for a variety of clients, like major enterprise clients versus local clients within our own city. It's just pretty remarkable. Also, the people we work with, I love our coworkers so much. I think everyone is very talented and smart, and I have a lot of respect for them. And I think that's all I have to say. Oh, Valorem, they also will invest in you as a person. And so I was able to receive world-class training through Nielsen Norman Group, through Edward Tufte, and just like learn more and deepen my skill set within user experience. And we all like to share knowledge with one another. And so we regularly have these groups called knowledge transfers. And so like someone will get online and they will present information about their expertise. And we learn things from like copywriting within Netflix apps to the blockchain, etc. I think I gave a talk on like design trade-offs and how that translated to skincare packaging. And so like you're able to explore a lot of things professionally, also be able to like bring your interest and expertise to other people. So there's a lot of sharing and knowledge transfer going on.
Thank you, Merritt. And to that, the knowledge transfer, I love those sessions. You can go on, you can talk to, basically present to your coworkers that you might not have the chance to work with on a project or day to day, or even see, they could be in a completely different office, you know, pre quarantine times. And it gives you the opportunity to not only just build a rapport, but then also talk to what you're passionate about. And you can either talk about what you're passionate about and tie it to tech. You can talk about something that you're passionate about within tech that you do from a day-to-day basis. So the knowledge transfers are something that we've picked up over the last couple years company-wide that are pretty enjoyable to attend and or present at. But I appreciate you, Merritt, speaking on the growth and the continuous education in the sense of different platforms that we have for our employees to utilize, or a reimbursement that we offer from an additional training. So any courses, seminars, certifications that you want to attend or do, we offer a yearly stipend to all of our employees to cover that. And when we came together with Reply, everyone in the company was given full access to Udemy. So Udemy is a training platform out there where they have tens of thousands of classes, all free, because we have we each have a membership, and it varies from technical courses to, if you wanted to go more towards marketing, or if you wanted to take more of a coding class, if I wanted to take more of a coding class so that I could be able to communicate with all of the candidates as we're growing, that's something that we give the option out there to all of our employees to do. And with that, and just talking to the individuals and our growth, one of the biggest areas that we are experiencing for rapid growth would be our data and analytics practice. And I have Erin, which is one of our senior digital insight consultants on the data and analytics team, here to join us as well. And Erin's going to speak to her experience at Valorem Reply and also data today.
Thank you, Blair. So like she said, my name is Erin Woodward. I'm one of the senior consultants for the data-driven enterprise section of Valorem. And data-driven enterprise basically means anything regarding data or the data estate in a company is what we touch, right? Over the last year, we've seen a lot of companies move to the cloud, right? Everybody wants everything in the cloud. And what does that mean? Right, well, that's where DDE steps in, and we say, okay, let's look at what you have. Let's see what we can do to transform it and make it better, right? And we'll handle everything from architecture, from modeling to loading, all the way up to data visualizations, dashboarding, and presentations. So a little bit about me. I've been doing data and data analytics for 20 years. I would love to tell you an inspirational story about how I knew I was going to do this from when I was 5 years old, but I knew I was going to do this my sophomore year in college when my advisor said, you have to pick a major. And I said, okay, well, I'm really good with numbers and I'm really good with analytics. And she said, well, this computer thing is taking off, because this was the 90s, right? This computer thing is taking off. I think you'd be a good fit from that. And it was just like a fish in water. I just took to data and analytics. And I consider myself a full stack BI developer, because in my career, I've done everything from designing the databases to loading the databases to presenting the databases. And most recently, I've gotten into governance and security. So now making sure the data is secured up to par with whatever regulations are necessary. And then also communicating that. So since I've been in Valorem, they are right that it is fast paced and it is a new challenge every day. But I have to echo what Merritt said, is our coworkers are just fantastic. Valorem works just across every industry you can imagine, but it feels like a small company and a family and a team. And I am never going into a project alone, right? I know that I at any time have anybody, even if we're remote, out there to say, hey, I'm stuck. Can you help me with this? Can you sanity check me on this? And I'm never without somebody. So that's been a really nice experience for me. And I have enjoyed all of the training. Given that we do get a new client or a new role every 3 or 6 months, it's nice to have all of those resources out there. Anytime you need to teach yourself something new, anytime you need to learn something new, I'm never without that without that information. So I think that's all I have for right now.
Thank you. Andre, you had mentioned at the beginning of this work remote, how we've handled it. Did you want to touch on how we have adjusted with being fully work from home?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both Aaron and Merritt touched on some really important points, and Blair touched on it as well. The need for digital transformation has definitely been accelerated by our situation with COVID. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how we pivoted because we are a decentralized organization. So as Merritt had touched on, having our offices all around North America, and then also being part of the Reply network and being more of a global organization and working with all of our sister companies around the world. We have always been an organization that focuses on utilizing all of our digital tools to bring us together. And so even before COVID, being part of this decentralized network, our organization has always been fairly comfortable with working within teams, or if it comes to our clients, working with Zoom or Google around digital meeting, virtual meetings, and bringing that together. And so when the quarantine happened and we shut down all of our offices, it was kind of a natural switch for us. It is very natural within our organization to always have your video on so that we can continue to have that face-to-face interaction. But at the same time, also giving due respect for knowing that people are in their homes, they've got kids and pets and everything else. And so sometimes it's not always either possible or comfortable to have video on. So even though our organization is very much focused on making sure we have as close to a face-to-face interaction as possible, we try to balance that with the respect that everybody needs, having moved into their homes. And so having said that, it's not uncommon for all of us to start meeting each other's pets and kids and situations at home. It's not uncommon to find me at sitting outside at a coffee shop when the weather's warm enough to actually be outside in the mornings, or sitting on my back deck. And so we were able to make that transition fairly seamlessly when we started to recognize that this was going to be a much more protracted time at home. The organization stepped up and gave everyone a stipend to try and enhance their home offices as much as possible, just to try and make it as comfortable, knowing that everybody's situation is a little bit different. And so I think that's something that we've all grown to be really grateful for with the organization. But as Blair mentioned, we had one of our best revenue years ever last year, and I think a lot of that is due to the type of work that we do. So for those of you that may have joined after we did the introduction, Valorem is a digital transformation consultancy. And so as I talked about COVID accelerating the need for this digital transformation and focusing on organizations trying to figure out how to do more with less, trying to figure out how to pivot very quickly with their organization as things changed, everything from collaboration to security. As Aaron talked about, that data repository and analytics, doing more with that data and making it much more valuable. We have been in the very fortunate position of being ready with both the expertise and the tools and resources to help our companies and our clients really focus in on what it is that they need to do, what results are they trying to drive, and how do you make technology an enabler to do that. So from that standpoint, we were able to pivot pretty easily. And really, I think both Aaron and Merritt talked about it, being able to support each other. And so that's a little bit about how we pivoted to working in the office to working from home during the quarantine and more of the isolation. As we start to move forward to opening the offices, one of the things that I personally am very grateful for with Valorem is that we are taking a very conservative approach to bringing people back into the office and making sure that everybody feels safe, they feel supported, they feel comfortable being in the office. And so we're most likely going to be moving to some sort of hybrid approach so that folks can come in when they want to, when they need to, and then making the best of where we have figured out where we've been successful being 100% working from home, and then also taking the benefits of being in the office with each other. And so I can see us kind of moving to that hybrid approach once we've gotten a really good feel for what works, what doesn't work, how people are going to feel comfortable. And that's how a lot of decisions at Valorem are made in terms of just making sure that we're very, very respectful of everybody's personal decisions and personal environments and scenarios, and trying to make an environment where everyone can do their best work. So Blair, is there anything else that you can think of that I haven't touched on relating to working from home? And also Aaron, Merritt, if you guys have anything to add to that.
I don't have anything to add, but I'm glad that you mentioned the just home office situation and the stipend, because of how many employees we have in the company, and the company offering that up speaks so loudly to how much they care about our day-to-day ability to work and be comfortable and try to embrace as much as we can just the quick pivot of now we're all from working from home, and how are we going to go about doing this, but how are we going to go about doing this together? And Valorem really is such a family, and Merritt and Aaron and Andre, you've all touched on it, of we are growing, we're at a crazy rate, but we aren't losing the feel of I could reach out to Merritt and we haven't worked on a project or ever, and haven't talked in a couple months, and she'd drop what she was doing and help me if I needed something. And everyone across the board has that. And when I'm talking to my friends and family about Valorem, one thing I always make sure to mention is I've never worked at a company where everyone is so passionate about what they do and about being successful and giving it their all. And it's hard to beat that. Honestly, it's a great company.
Yeah.
Great family.
And then one of the things that I neglected to mention earlier, I will be participating as a panelist on remote work tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So if you want to get any more insights into some of the things that we've done at Valorem, along with my other panelists, please join us tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock Pacific time, and you'll find that session on remote work. Outside of that, I think just the most important thing to know about Valorem is that we are in a huge hiring mode. So please definitely check out our careers page, which is in the chat session, or in the chat over on the right hand side, valoremreply.com /careers. There are a ton of openings for really, really cool projects. If you don't see something there that fits your particular skill set, but you're still interested in exploring more about Valorem, as Blair has mentioned before, part of our process is not only filling openings that we have, but we also look out for folks that are going to be really good fit for Valorem, and looking for opportunities and scenarios that will fit them as well. So again, if Valorem is an organization that you think you might be interested in, but you don't necessarily see a direct fit with openings, please feel free to send a note to, let's see, I know I saw it in the chat session, recruiting@valorem.com. If you just want to have an informational an informational chat or to talk or to find out more about the Valorem. So with that, I think that's all that I've got in terms of the organization, our openings, how we do work from home, some experiences. Anything else that anybody can think of? And feel free if you have questions, if you want to come off of mute and ask questions, feel free to do that. Otherwise, if you want to use the chat, we can do that as well. And Isabel, Sarah, I don't know if we have, if there's anything else that we need to address here.
Thank you that you've covered quite a lot. I mean, it could be nice to know, are all of you going back to the office, or are you all continuing to work?
That's a good question. As of right now, we are looking at a September timeframe for going back into the office. I'm particularly excited about that. We just did a major renovation, so as luck would have it, we spent about 2 years designing our new office and taking space from one of the offices next door to ours and increasing our space. And we decided that we would pull the trigger on starting that renovation in February of 2020. And in March of 2020, as we all know, everything shut down. So the silver lining there was we were trying to figure out, well, how do we renovate an entire office without impacting our employees too much? And so obviously that became a non-issue since the office was shut down. So the good news is in Seattle, we have a brand new office with brand new furniture and about 2,200 square feet more space. So the nice thing is when we do go back from a socially distanced perspective, we'll have more than enough room. And then as things start to open up, we'll have more and more people into the office. So as of right now, from an organizational standpoint, and I believe this is globally, we're looking at a September timeframe, but again, that will always be dictated by what's going on around the world, as well as specific to very specific locations. So a little bit fluid, and but we're keeping our fingers crossed that we get back into the office and work more closely with each other.
Definitely, yeah. And are there any positions that you have open at the moment that are sort of time sensitive, or that you're really looking to hire in the coming weeks or in the coming month or so?
Yeah, my guess is if you ask the right person, every single one of our openings is time sensitive, and we are looking to hire as quickly as possible. But Blair, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I would agree. I was going to say all of them. Isabel are we're looking to fill all of them. So as I mentioned, if you see one that interests you and you'd love to chat about it more, or if you have a different path that you're going down that's tech focused as well, and you want to chat about that and how it could align with Valorem and what we're looking for, I'd be happy to have that conversation too.
I'm sorry, I've actually just thought of a question that has come up quite a bit with our job expos is what's the hiring process for Valorem, and what does that sort of look like, and what's the time frame that people should expect?
Great question. So it definitely does vary around timing because of some of our positions needing more of a deep dive on technical skill set and whiteboarding or throughout the interview process. But what the process looks like is we have once we communicate and email back and forth to lock down a time to talk with the candidate and the recruiter, then we would have typically a 30-minute conversation. And if everyone is on the same page at that point, we would have what it's called a cultural fit assessment. So it is a assessment that everyone takes in order to go through the interview process. And that is done on the candidate's own time from their computer. It takes roughly an hour, 90 minutes to complete. From there, depending on how quickly that's able to be completed, we would be able to then look at scheduling interviews with the hiring manager, individuals that would be equal level colleagues. And that's where it can definitely vary in time. For the most part, our jobs, it's typically 3 interview loops. But there have been situations where we interview someone for, I'm looking at our open jobs right now, let's say an account executive, which is on our customer success team. And we think that they'd be better fit for a different opportunity that we have open. That's where it can vary with the timing of it, increasing it, having to go through different conversations. So that's roughly what our interview process looks like. But as the market is increasing and as the need for tech jobs is continuing to increase, we are constantly pivoting from a recruit standpoint too, of how can we stay competitive? You know, what do we need to look for? What are big focus areas? And how do we shorten interview process time? Really to find the right candidate and the right fit for the company too.
Mm-hmm. And what would be a right candidate? Obviously, with you know, the specific criteria out of the way. If you meet that, what's an ideal candidate where employee for Valorem look like? Like, what sort of qualities would you be looking for?
That's another great question, Isabel. And I think we could all kind of touch on this just based off of individuals that we work with day to day. And we've all been a part of an interview loop before. But I will say the biggest item is true consulting experience, because of how much one gains from having to pivot and work with the clients, as well with the internal teams, and to really be able to, I know I keep saying pivoting, but that's every day. We are all always pivoting and growing from that. And so the biggest thing I would say is consulting, my view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would add to that, as part of our mission statement, we talk about a destination for people that love solving problems. And again, I talked a little bit about the fact that we're 100% on the Microsoft platform, but because we're end to end on that platform, there's a lot of room for innovation. And so having people that are just curious about technology or curious about a client problem that we're trying to solve, this is a fantastic place for people to really run wild with that curiosity and drive value for our clients. So I would say that for me is probably a big one. I don't know, Aaron or Merritt, if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Curiosity was going to be the answer I was going to give. And that just helps with consulting overall, because you need to really figure out the problem, because the client could say X is a problem, but without curiosity, you may be solving for X, but you really need to solve for Y. And so being able to do that, you can help also articulate to the client, like, hey, this is the root, here's our solution, this is why we think that, and so we can get them on board with that solution.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I would add to that is a really strong willingness to learn, right? And that goes beyond just data to any section of technology, right? You're never, ever, ever going to know everything, really, not about technology in general, but in your own specialization. So being willing to say, you know what, I'm going to go learn that to help my client. I'm going to go learn that. Just that willingness and the hunger to go kind of learn and say, you know what, I'm going to go learn this. I think that's really going to be a key skill or a key part of the attitude to have.
Perfect. Isabel, anything else you can think of?
They're the questions I think that rack a lot of people's brains to see what kind of person are you looking to hire, the sort of the values that people should align with. But if there are any other questions from the participants, please let us know. I'm actually going to hand over to Sarah for the next few moments to hand off the event.
Right.
So if you do have any questions, do let us know. Andre, I might see you at the next event as well.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Isabel.
Of course, yeah.
So Sarah, I think we've gone through most of what we wanted to discuss. If you can think of anything else that we need to cover.
No, but since I'm just kind of jumping in and, please correct me if I miss this, but something that actually came up in one of the other sessions is how are you guys adjusting to the remote work? And is that I heard, as I was coming in that you guys have a new space. So, what does work day look like right now for you guys?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the pandemic, as the offices started to close, we went to 100% work from home, and we actually shut our offices down. And part of that was obviously out of an abundance of caution. But the other was we just wanted to make sure that all of our employees felt supported. Nobody felt like there was a need to come into the office, and really just kind of even the playing field for everybody. So we went to a place where we just shut down all the offices. So it was never really a thought of, well, do I have to go in? Or if I don't go in, am I missing something? Our offices continue to be closed at least until September. And so we have gone to 100% work from home. It's worked extremely well for us. As I mentioned earlier, we are a digital strategy consulting organization, and so that kind of comes firsthand for us. We've always kind of worked in a decentralized format where video has just always been a part of our organization. So when we had to make that switch to working from home or working remotely, it was kind of a natural change for us, and fairly easy to do for most folks. We also recognize that not everybody has a private space or a door that they can shut. So it's not uncommon. There's a gentleman that I work with who's I see Merritt raising her hand. There's a gentleman I work with who literally takes over his, I think, 8 or 9-year-old son's bedroom. As you can imagine, in Seattle, space is a premium, and so we try to recognize that not everybody has the same sort of setup, and so basically trying to make sure that we can accommodate for that as well. But organizationally, it seems to have been a fairly seamless change for all of us.
Yeah, I really appreciate those stories of kind of, because, especially what I've listened to this conversation that you guys talk about is pivoting, right? And so I'm always curious to see, well, what from the leadership perspective, what are you guys doing to continue to grow, continue to learn, and continue to pivot beyond just kind of like those reactionary things like a pandemic? Like, what steps do you guys as a leadership take to, continue that growth mindset?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about growth mindset. Number one, recognizing that not everybody is going to have the same space, the same access, the same amount of time, especially for folks that have young kids at home where they're trying to balance, educating at home, also having a job, also turning their home into a workplace, trying to not make the home overcome as a workplace, as a schooling institution. And so number one, first recognizing that, right? Number two, being as supportive as possible. And I think the biggest key for that was listening. Blair is probably the closest to our human resources organization than anybody, and being able to really understand what are some of the needs and challenges that our organization is having, and then how do we address that as a group, knowing full well that there is not going to be a one size fits all approach to this.
Because I think from everybody on the other perspective, right, we're all feeling so vulnerable and lost in our own ways. So to hear leadership and people in positions that are doing really awesome things, knowing that, those things never stop.
Yep.
And I think that's really impactful for sure. And then the other kind of note that I had in regards to that is, Obviously, I see a very diverse group of people right in front of me, and that's, not very common. Is that something that's just kind of inherent in the culture, or is that something, obviously specifically searching, or how did you get to be so broad of a spectrum of people?
Yeah, I think it definitely is part of our culture. But as we talked about that growth mindset, right? We do have a lot of focus on trying to understand or be in a position of knowing what we don't know. And so really being focused on how do we address areas of diversity and inclusion and equity? What does that take? And so I was fortunate enough to be a speaker at Microsoft's Include Day. And one of the things that we did talk about was the fact that Valorem is very much focused on trying to create environments where we can have healthy conversations and understanding where are our blind spots when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I know that Blair is working with our human resources department specifically around recruiting to try and start to address where we have blind spots. And I use that word very deliberately because there's so much about diversity, equity, and inclusion that we just don't know. And it is decades in the making in terms of both gender and racial inequality in the workplace, and specifically in our industry, that we recognize it's going to take some time, but being open to knowing that we don't have all of the answers and having that growth mindset that you talked about is also part of our culture. And so we do look for that. We are very purposeful in trying to make a positive impact where we can.
Because certainly one of the things that came up in another panel that I was in that was particularly interesting is not just going to get it, but actually retaining. Like, what does that retaining look like to you?
Yeah, and I think that is part of the inclusion, right, around the equity and diversity, equity, and inclusion. What you've really touched on is the inclusion. How do you make people feel comfortable? How do you make them feel supported? How do you make them feel like they are not just invited to the party, but are wanted to be an integral part of the party, right? And so my own personal perspective on that is, again, creating those environments where we can have conversations that not only exemplify where we're supporting, but we're also trying to learn from one another to then be more proactive in driving that level of inclusion. And that's just my own kind of personal spin on it. I don't know if Blair, Merritt, Aaron, if you've seen other instances where we're trying to drive that inclusion.
I know I'm taking a very personal stance for myself. I do have the experience of being a woman of color in this country, but there's also so much that I don't know. And I've just taken the last year to understand the historical significance, the structural powers of dismantling white supremacy, and then how that manifests in bias. And the thing is, we all have biases, whether we like it or not. And so even though I have the lived experience and I feel like I'm fairly well versed in these subjects, I'm still taking the time to put in the investment to really know what's going on. And I think that way, at least me personally, I can be a resource in helping drive those goals of really making the world more equitable.
I love that. Oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was just gonna say, one of the things that I have gotten from my experience with Valorem is that I feel like I am valued, right? As a woman in technology, and I mean, there's not a lot of us out there, right? And throughout most of my career, I've been the only female on my programming teams. And here I'm asked for an opinion, right? Hey, random people that I've never even worked with. Hey, we want your opinion on this. Hey, we want your opinion on this. We recognize that you have this experience and you have this knowledge, and we value that and we want to learn from it, and we want you to share that with others. And that's one of the things that I've enjoyed about my experience with this company.
That is huge. That is not something, like you said, it's not common. Especially being a woman in a meeting, it very often, you get sidelined. And so to be at least, hey, what are you thinking? Just asking that question is,
and to not have to interrupt, right? For them to reach out to me and say, hey, what is your opinion on this? Instead of having me, hey guys, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what I'm talking about. No, they've reached out to me and made the effort to include me. So it's been fantastic.
There is big female leadership energy. I would say that about half, I don't have the numbers, but I feel like half of our workforce is female and a lot are in leadership positions.
Yeah, both. We have co-CEOs for our organization. They're both female.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's really mostly the things that I think have come up a lot over the last week for especially women in tech. We get this very much we're somehow trying to disrupt, but we're just trying to be a part, right? We're just trying to come in and be. And like everyone else, I want a job. I want to be satisfied. I want to have, some kind of impact in the world. So I think it's really important for leadership to really showcase that, beyond you just being a cog in our system, we care that you have that fulfilled life. So thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks for letting me come in at the last minute. Sorry to just jump in.
Great questions. And we are very honored to be a part of the regatta and look forward to doing this again next year.
Yes, please do.
In person, I hope.
Yeah. Hopefully in person. Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. If anybody else has any questions or anything else they kind of want to closing words that you want to put out there, feel free.
I think the only thing I would add is if you're here in person or certainly watching the recording, if you yourself are interested or if you know friends, colleagues that might be interested in an organization like Valorem, definitely check out the valoremreply.com/careers page. If you are just looking for information about Valorem Reply, then also feel free to send the email to recruiting@valorem.com.
Perfect. And I'm not sure if all that stuff is put in the chat, but I'll go ahead and throw in.
It's all in the chat.
Okay, cool. Yep. Fantastic. Well, it was really nice to meet you all. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.